It's almost Friday, and Wednesday morning, my significant other, married for 19 years, together for 22, passed away in the wee hour of the morning of just after 3 o'clock. He was double vaccinated and boosted, and after that booster, he got neck cancer. He got chemo and radiation, and they told us there was an 85% success rate. And he went through torture. He went through hell. He did cisplatin, and that has side effects. The radiation, they actually radiated the right side where there was a little bit of cancer, and they also radiated the left side where there was no cancer. And he ended up with a necrotic ulcer, which is an ulcer where the bones in the back of the throat were deteriorated and the tissue deteriorated and a hole opened up. And ultimately on September 18th, he ended up in the emergency room, and they were going to send him up to the ICU. He was bleeding from his mouth, and they did a CAT scan and discovered he had a couple of new tumors. And so much for the chemotherapy and the radiation, right? And the radiation is actually the thing that caused the necrotic ulcer, the deterioration of the bones and the tissue. So it made a hole in his throat. And then he ended up with a ruptured artery, and he was bleeding on September 18th. Got him to emergency, and I had to ask, can you cauterize the area to stop the bleeding? He was sent for emergency or to surgery, and they were able to do a procedure to bring him back to me, and they did. And then 2 days ago, which it's like I believe October 4th or so, he coughed, and then he was bleeding again massively from his mouth. And it looked like they had stabilized him, and I was amazed how quickly it happened. They gave him something to clot the blood in his body, and they were giving him some blood since he lost a lot of blood. And then he coughed, and he coughed again, and blood was just pouring out of his mouth. And then they sat him up because he said, I can't breathe. And then they had to move him to a different room because there was some malfunction with equipment or whatever. But blood was just gushing out of his mouth. And it was the most horrific sight that I've ever seen in my life. And he also had massive tissue and some clots that were coming out. And the people in the ER, they were just shocked at what they were seeing. And they tried to intubate him and get a tube in his throat so he could breathe. But there was a mass there blocking that. And I couldn't watch everything, but I did come back and I saw him convulsing. Just shaking, convulsing. And it was because he wasn't getting oxygen. And then he was a code blue. And I heard them call the code blue to his room. I knew it was bad. And basically his heart had stopped, and they were doing compressions. And then they did a trach on him and made an incision in his throat and put a tube down there so he could breathe. But ultimately he passed away. And I have to tell you, I begged him not to get vaccinated. He would watch the news, and they fear-mongered him, and he was absolutely terrified of dying of COVID, of getting COVID and dying of COVID. There was nothing I could do to convince him that we had some prior immunity from potentially a previous coronavirus, and I couldn't get through to him. The level of brainwashing that the media did actually killed this man who was so scared to death of dying of COVID that he ended up getting vaccinated and then boosted and then ultimately getting cancer and going through these just horrific, heinous treatments. It's like nothing like, it's basically torture. And he lost his life, and basically he choked on his own blood. And I just wanted to tell you how bad it was and what I saw, how horrific it was, seeing blood gushing out of his mouth, and it looked like they couldn't do anything for him. And ultimately they came and gave me the news. And now I'm just beside myself with his being gone. Fortunately, my sons are here to comfort me. And, but it's astounding. It's just astounding. And he was otherwise healthy before. So, if you're thinking of it, don't do it. Boost up your immune system with vitamin C, D, and zinc, and maybe even quercetin. If you have to, get a doctor, Dr. Michael Turner from Kennewick, Washington, but there's a lot of frontline doctors who will prescribe ivermectin. And I don't think now it's as bad, but they're saying that, well, Bill Gates is saying that there will be another one coming. There's a book I just bought called Infected. Might be worth buying. I haven't been able to get into it much because it's only been a couple of days since the passing of my significant other. This is no joke, people. This is absolutely no joke. Do not vaccinate your children. Dr. Peter McCullough says they are not transmitters of COVID-19. Safeguard yourself, protect yourself, boost your immune system. But do not, under any circumstances, get the experimental vaccines. It will be, in this country, the United States, a mass genocide. And that's what Dr. Peter McCullough and Dr. Robert Malone, experts in this field, have said. And it's no joke. My half-brother died of cancer, multiple myelomas. He got vaccinated. One of our clients, he got vaccinated. He ended up with multiple myelomas. A colleague of ours, his son got vaccinated. Pancreatic cancer, blood infection, died. I can't stress enough how important this message is, because when you lose a loved one to cancer, and there will be massive amounts of cancer deaths in the United States and probably elsewhere in the world. You notice they don't give us the world news in the United States. They don't want us to know what's going on. They just don't want you to know. They don't want to tell you things, and we're not alone. We're not alone. Do not vaccinate your children, please. For God's sake, do not get vaccinated yourself. I've seen the aftermath now. Gary was diagnosed in October of last year, started going through the chemo and radiation, and it just wrecked him. And they said, oh, there's an 85% survival rate. Well, where is he now? He's dead. He's gone. So, Don't believe those statistics. And they're going to get worse because the mRNA technology is going to override your own immune system and do really unbelievable things to your body. Anyway, boost your immune system, take care of yourself, stay well. And these crazies, there's more on the way. They'll do anything. And it's beyond unconscionable. The evil is unconscionable. Just stay safe, keep your family safe, and protect yourself. Thank you.